Hello and welcome to That Shooting Show. My name's Steve Anderson. I am your humble host. Want to apologize once again for the podcast drought. I have been on the road extensively and expensively, but I am back for a little while, so we'll get you one today. We'll get you one tomorrow, and then I'm off to North Carolina. There's exactly one spot left in the advanced class towards the end of the week, next week in North Carolina at H2O Waterfowl. You can get in on that. Exactly one spot left. Go to andersonshooting.com and click upcoming classes for details on that. We're doing mental management November 7, 14, and 21 at 6 p.m. Eastern and 9 p.m. Eastern. So that'll be three. I think they're Thursdays. Don't quote me on that, but it's for sure 7, 14, and 71. Sorry, 7, 14, and 21, 6 p.m. Eastern, and 9 p.m. Eastern. So all of you West Coast people that have been asking for a West Coast friendly time slot, I need you to pony up and get in there. Let's get this thing done. So that's what's in the news. We need to be booking classes for 2025. Very, very simple. If you have access to a USPSA range, you send me an email that says, hey, I can get us on a range. Hey, let's come do a class. And you, as the class organizer, can get the class for free. We have multiple formats we can do. We can do 2-day standard. We can do 2-day advanced. We can put a match in there anywhere you want. We can do mental management in the classroom. We can do private days before and after. It's unlimited what we can do. I just need you to get a hold of me, say, hey, I want to do a class. Here's what I can do, and we will get it done. Until then, go to andersonshooting.com and click on upcoming classes to see where we're going to be, what we're going to be doing, as well as the online mental management classes. So, I want to thank our partners first. You know them, you love them. Say them with me. Walther Firearms is the title sponsor of this program and of andersonshooting.com. Targets USA manufactures the finest steel targetry on the planet. Had somebody ask in an online group, what's the best miniature popper for practice? There is none that is anywhere near as good as the Rhino Knockdown. The Rhino Knockdown is so awesome. It sits on top of a 2x4. It's got the little tripod legs at the bottom. It is super portable. It is extremely affordable, and it is the very, very best. The other cool thing is, because it flops over on the top of a 2x4, painting it is a very hands-clean environment. You don't need to, dig your fingers under the dirt or anything like that. It's just sitting up there, paint it, flip it back up, and you are G2G, good to go. And of course, CR Speed, as you know, manufactures the finest gun handling gadgetry on the planet. The AMG-lab.com Commanderson timer continues to turn heads and blow minds by putting the time into the tablet. And OutdoorDynamics.net remanufactures the finest competition ammunition you can dispense from a Freedom Seed dispenser, and Hunter's HD Gold, as you know, is the only eyewear that I wear. And Shooting Sports Innovations makes a lot to Shooting Sports Innovations is a lot to type because there is a lot to see when you get there. So, just returned from Open Nationals in the Talladega area of Florida, and some very interesting things happened there. I got to observe the Open Super Squad, and the first thing I noticed on the Open Super Squad was their splits were slower than the other squad I got to be with. I was also with sort of the Masterpiece Arms Super Squad, and I was amazed and astonished and pleasantly surprised by the patience of the splits on the Open Super Squad. And that really cannot be overstated. Right? Here we have the fastest handgun on the planet, shot by the best fast handgun shooters on the planet, and surprise, surprise, they are shooting alphas on open targets. I mean, who knew? Who knew that was the formula? Shooting alphas on open targets. Holy moly. And that's going to be a recurring theme today. So we're going to talk about how to win your class at nationals. And I have done more math for this program than I have ever done before. I have been doing math. How long have I been mathing? I've been mathing now for about 3 hours. And because of stage points and hit factors and things like that, this is not going to be 100% mathematically correct, but it's going to be pretty dang close and close enough to draw some conclusions. All right, so we're only going to do open. But the conclusions are going to be the same. So the difference between number 1 and number 2 at the very top was 8.54 seconds, which is 0.47 seconds per stage. Pretty close. So I go into practice score competitor and I start trimming deltas and charlies, and I was not able to trim enough deltas and charlies to overcome that 8.5 second gap. I mean, I could have kept doing it, obviously. So number 1 shot 305 alphas, 87 charlies, 4 deltas, and 0 mics. Pretty good. Number 2 shot 300 alphas, so 5 less, 88 charlies, 1 more charlie, 8 deltas, 4 more deltas, and also 0 mics. This is probably, it's the first time I can recall number 1 and number 2 at nationals having a clean match. That's very, very rare. And this was, in my opinion, a very easy match technically. Which was very surprising. I was thinking since it was open in PCC, the shots would be a lot more difficult. But the match was actually pretty easy from a technical standpoint. No really tricky movers. Pretty easy shots, which will be revealed when we start looking at the hit factors. Okay, so between 1 and 2, we had an 8.5 second gap with very similar points. All right, so number 2 needs to get a little quicker. That's what happens there. Okay, so the next one we're going to look at is master class. Let me just pull that up here. All right, in master class, there was a 15.41 second gap between second place and first place. 15 seconds separated first and second. And that equates to 0.85 seconds per stage. Okay? And we weren't able to eliminate enough points quickly and reasonably to overcome that gap. In this case, shooter number 1, the first place finisher, had 289 alphas, 96 charlies, 8 deltas, and 3 mics. Shooter number 2 had 317 alphas, 70 charlies, 6 deltas, and 3 mics. Shooter number 1 also popped a no-shoot in there somewhere. But the time gap of almost a second per stage on average overcame those points. Okay? Again, this is not scientific, and I'm not trying to tell you that you need to go faster and shoot worse points. That's not the conclusion that I want you to come to. What I am saying is you need to be significantly faster, and we'll find that out as we get going. If you're going to have sloppy points, they're not sloppy. If you're going to have sloppy-ish points inside of your class, you need to be significantly faster, and in this case, number 1 was significantly faster, to the tune of 15.41 seconds over 18 stages. Okay? In A class, we see something very similar, which was kind of surprising, actually. In A class, we see that number 1, A class, was 18.22 seconds ahead, so 1 second per stage. And he needed it too, because number 1 in A class busted 272 alphas, 107 charlies, 15 deltas, and 2 mics. Shooter number 2 busted 320 alphas, 74 charlies, only 1 delta, and only 1 mic. But the 18-second differential was enough to give shooter 1 the lead. Okay, and curiously, shooter number 1, who did win A class, came in 28th overall with that amount of points. So that'd be a whole different show, right? If we leave the time, but we clean up, well, we could do it right now. So 279 seconds in A class. Master class was 259 seconds for the whole match. And the whole enchilada was 241. So not enough speed there to do a whole lot better than that. All right, let's go to B class. In B class, the time differential was only 5.79 seconds or 0.32 per stage. So that was very, very close. And here we see a more traditional conclusion. Shooter A, 275 alphas versus shooter 2, 252. So 27 more alphas, 23, it doesn't matter, 20 more alphas. Okay. Charlie's, shooter 1, 103, shooter 2, 117. Mike's, deltas, shooter 1, 16 deltas, shooter 2 in B class, 21. And 2 mics for shooter 1, 6 mics for shooter 2. I feel like we should go back and clean that up a little bit. Let's try it this way. First place, B class, 275 alphas, 103 Charlies, 16 deltas, 2 mics. Shooter number 2 in B class, 252, 117 Charlies, 21 deltas, and 6 mics, with only a 5.79 differential. C class is also very interesting. In C class, the differential was only 1.79 seconds between them. But the points is very interesting. Shooter 1, alphas, 281 versus 249. Significantly more number of alphas. Call that 50 more. Charlie's, 96 for shooter 1, 125 for shooter 2. So 30 more Charlies. Deltas, 15 for first place C class, 21 for number 2. And shooter number 1 had 4 mics, and shooter number 2 only had 1, but the deltas and Charlie differential was enough to overcome those 4 mics with a very, very small time gap. The conclusion is coming. All right, so that gets us down to C class. Now let's look at junior. Let's look at high junior, where the time differential was minuscule. The time differential was 3 seconds, which is 0.5 seconds per stage. Now, with a time differential of only 3 seconds between first place junior and second place junior, we get into some very interesting time possibilities. Were there malfunctions? That's 3 seconds. Was there 3 misses on steal? That's 3 seconds. Was there a positional overrun? Was there a brain fart? Any of these single events could cost 3 seconds. Okay? And the most interesting thing about junior is they were both master class shooters, and literally removing 1 mic gives number 2 the win. So shooter number 1 in junior, they're both master class shooters, 263 alphas, 107 Charlies, 27 deltas, 5 mics. Shooter number 2, remember this is a 3-second differential, maybe less than that. Make sure I got that right. Yeah, roughly 3-second differential. So we got 263 versus 264, very similar. 107 versus 112, pretty similar. 21 versus 14, pretty similar. Mics, 5 for number 1, 6 for number 2, and a no shoot for number 2. Okay, so we have the potential to save 3 seconds. Malfunctions, steal. This doesn't have anything to do with the actual shooting. Malfunctions, missteal, things of that nature gives number 2 the win, and literally removing 1 mic from that match gives shooter number 2 the win. Now, the conclusion of this is not to shoot a clean match, because that's the wrong goal. Well, what do you mean? You're out there talking about alphas and deltas and mics. Yes, I am. But the goal of this is to shoot a cleaner match, not a clean match. Again, this is the first time that I can remember the 1 and 2 spots in open both having clean matches. That's extremely rare. Now, that could become a trend here in the future. We might be seeing that happen more and more, but I don't remember the last time number 1 and 2 have had a completely clean match. Heck, it's very rare for number 1 to have a completely clean match. All right, if we look at senior, the time differential, make sure I get this right. If we go into the senior division, the time differential was 0.4 seconds for the entire match. 0.4 seconds. That is a tiny, tiny, tiny bit of time. Okay. Shooter 1, alphas, 293 versus 269. It's a pretty serious differential. Charlie's, 97 for first place, 137 for second place. Deltas, 5 for first place, 12 for second place. Mike's, 1 for first place, 2 for second place, with a .4 differential between them. Shooter number 2 just needs to shoot a slightly cleaner match. And I didn't go into trimming that. It wouldn't take a whole lot of trimming of mics and deltas to give number 2 the edge. Okay, very, very interesting. Now, Super Senior is even more interesting. In Super Senior, we saw literally one stage with two FTSAs cost number 2 first place. Second place was 56.47 seconds faster, and third place was 26 seconds faster. Right? So the number 1 shooter in Super Senior was actually the third slowest of the top 3. But let's look at the points. Number 1, 319 alphas, 72 charlies, 4 deltas, 1 mic. Shooter number 2, 252 alphas, 105 charlies, 25 deltas, and 12 mics. 2 no penalty mics, 2 no shoots, and 2 FTSAs. And he was significantly quicker. He was 56 seconds quicker. But it wasn't enough to overcome those penalties. Very, very interesting stuff. And I'm not trying to tell you to evaluate speed and accuracy and determine how many charlies to throw. We're gonna get to that here in a minute. I'm just gonna tell you that deltas, mics, procedurals hurt your score, and you can't outrun them. Right? That's all I'm trying to tell you. You know this, but we're going to go through it again. The ladies division was very interesting. Number 2 lady shot minor. And by the way, that's my favorite female shooter of all time, Morgan Leonhardt. She came in second place to Jessie Harrison, who's an excellent, excellent shooter. Had Morgan shot major, she would have won. Now, we don't know what shooting major does to her time. She was a little quicker than number 1. It's hard to say what that would have done to her time, but if we were able to get the same or similar time, shooting major would give Morgan the win. Okay, we'll look at the points differential anyway. Number 1, 284, 100, 11, and 1. That's 284 alphas, 100 charlies, 11 deltas, 1 mic. Shooter number 2, 278, exactly the same number of charlies at 100, 14 deltas, a little bit more, mic. 1 more of those at 2 no penalty mics, and a time differential of about 10 seconds. Okay? Very, very interesting. Now, and by the way, I did do some math on the math. I did some remathing. That would be math squared, math times math. Had Morgan shot 4 less deltas, she would have won, even shooting minor. So if we can turn those deltas from 14 into 10, we win. Okay? All right. So here's the conclusion. Some are obvious, some not so much. And I actually debated this program for some of those mathing hours. I even called a very dear friend who is extremely good at hit factor math to make sure I was right about these things, or at least on the right page, and I believe that I am. So, obviously, when points are similar, time must be reduced. Okay? Time must be reduced. You can use the AMG data while you still know the stages to go in there and figure out, okay, this is stage 1. I got clipped by 3 seconds. Where are those 3 seconds? You're not going to find it in splits. Where am I going to find 3 seconds? If you have the stage data from the timer, that's good. If you have match video in the third person of you and the other shooter, should be very easy to find 3 seconds. Makeups on steel. Each one of those is potentially a full second. And of course, malfunctions and brain farts very easily can be well over a second. I've never timed or observed the actual amount of time it takes to react the slide on a simple malfunction. The first guy that responded on the old Facebook said it's about 2.5 seconds. That surprised me at first, but if you think about reaction time, hey, why is my gun not going off? Oh, it must have jammed. That's weird. I'm not sure why it jammed. Oh, crap, it jammed again. React the slide and fire. That could very easily be 2.5 seconds, maybe more. Standing reload is going to be at least that long, especially if we don't get around in the chamber. And we need to reduce the penalties. Duh. By shooting a cleaner match. Okay? We need to be shooting alphas on open targets. I know. I know, sounds crazy. It was interesting to me when I watched the Super Squad. There were a couple of stages that had a long run to either side and really close targets, 3 to 5 yard targets. I saw a lot of shooters take 2 Charlies on those close targets. Okay, a 3 to 5 yard target is a dumb place to take Charlies. It's an even dumber place to take a Delta, and it's a really dumb place to take a Mike. So I'm going to encourage you to see close targets as close alphas and not fast shots. I'm sorry. Think of them as fast alphas, not fast shots. Okay, it's a dumb reason to take a Charlie. Center of available target area on parcels. If we're going to do that, we need to be shooting alphas on open targets. This match was easy from a technical perspective. There were not that many difficult shots. Maybe a couple of 20-yarders, maybe a 25-yarder. That's about it. And they were not very common. This was an easy match from a technical standpoint. But let's be shooting the center of the available target area on parcels, which is the best advice 95% of the time for 95% of the shooters. Okay? And of course, FTSA is never acceptable. There may have been a slight memory component to one of these stages, but nothing that you would look at and say, oh, this is a hardcore memory stage. Nothing of the sort. Now, the other thing we can start doing is use the results intelligently. I have not advocated for using the results in the past. I think for the average shooter, that's likely to do more harm than good. But we get to a certain level. When we're a contender to win our class at a national event, we need to be smart enough to use some results intelligently. And the point I'm trying to make is when the hit factor of your closest competitor is known, you have a knowledge of what accuracy is worth. Now, I'm not suggesting that you go estimate your hit factor on the stage. That could, for most people, most of the time, cause an expectation of a result instead of an expectation of a performance. I'm not advocating for that at this time. However, if you know your close competitor's hit factor, or if you know the leading hit factor in your class, now you have some data. See, we can assume that you're going to shoot it in a similar amount of time. We can make that assumption. That's not something you need to go try to do. And that's the danger of this information, right? If you think about, oh, this is an 8, I got to shoot an 8, therefore I got to shoot it in 12 seconds, that is not going to be good information for the vast majority of shooters. But what is good information is knowing what a points down situation or a penalty situation is worth to prevent or correct. And all you got to do is take the number of points down for whatever you're looking at, divided by a known hypothetical, theoretical, standing, whatever it is, hit factor, and that's the amount of time you have to correct or prevent whatever we're talking about. And this is information that is extremely helpful. For example, if you know that you're in strong contention to win your class, or that's your goal, and you go into the last stage, wouldn't it be nice to know that you've got 1.5 seconds to prevent or correct a mic before it hurts your hit factor? Wouldn't it be nice to know that you have 0.44 to correct or prevent a delta before it hurts your hit factor? Okay, so what I've got here is not scientific in any way except for the conclusion. So the question I had for my math expert is, if I take the average the hit factor for every stage inside of each class, the problem with that is that doesn't account for the match points of each stage. Meaning, if we have a 10 hit factor that's only worth 30 points and a 6 hit factor that's worth 150 points, they don't affect the match the same, so that may not equal a true average hit factor. I don't care. We're going to do it anyway. Okay? So I averaged Christian Seiler's hit factors, and I got an average. It might be a mean. I don't know. But I got 8.19. Okay? And that means to win the match, a Charlie is worth 0.12. And I'm simply reminded of those really close 3-yard targets. Right? The shooters that took 2 Charlies on that could have reduced the split or could have tolerated reducing the split by 0.12. Okay? That means if they went in there and let's say they busted a 10 split and got 2 Charlies. Okay? Well, let's say they got Alpha Charlie. They could have turned that 10 split into a 21 and improved their hit factor. I'm not telling you to slow down. It's not what I'm telling you. I'm telling you to learn to shoot alphas without consciously slowing down. And that's going to come up over and over and over again. That's what Christian Seiler does. He shoots alphas without consciously slowing down. And if you think that's counterintuitive, you need to come take a class with me because I'm going to show you how to do it. I am going to show you how to do it. At the very top, he had 0.36 to correct or prevent a delta. Now, that is not enough time to observe a delta and decide to make it up. Not enough time. Not enough time for anybody. That's a 0.7 proposition. To observe a delta and decide to make it up usually is about a 0.7, 0.8. You don't have enough time. But 0.36 is plenty of time to prevent a delta. That's what I want you to look at. This is prevention time, not, well, it's also correction time. But if we look at it as prevention time, it's pretty powerful, okay? And that means a miss. At the very top, he had 1.8 seconds to prevent or correct a miss, and that might be why he never had one. Think of it as prevention time at least as much as correction time. I did the same thing for B class, and I got an average of 6.8. That means a Charlie is worth 0.14, a Delta is worth 0.44, and a Mike is worth 2.2. So in B class, every Mike, we could have spent an additional 2.19 seconds to prevent or correct and improve our hit factor. Okay? The point I'm trying to make is we have got to get great at calling our shots. We've got to. And we're going to talk about that here in just a minute. First of all, I don't know how much of this time was caused by malfunctions. But I saw a lot of malfunctions. I saw a lot of slide racking on both squads, on the MPA Super Squad and the actual Open Super Squad. I don't remember seeing Seiler have any malfunctions. So part of being a champion is having championship maintained gear. Okay? The second jam is your fault. The first one, not your fault. Could happen to anybody. The second time it happens, Joey Sauerland had a malfunction on a big stick he was using with his limited gun, and I instructed him to pick out his favorite little flower on the berm and throw the magazine at the flower. Okay, let's not use untested gear. At the first hint of any kind of a problem, change that gear out. Okay, the time differentials in many cases were very close. For example, if you remember senior, one malfunction or one extra malfunction from the winner of senior would have cost him the match, all things being equal. Literally one. And I don't know if he had any or didn't, but remember their differential was only 0.4. You don't have that kind of time. All right. So let's go back to what always works. And on both squads, the shooters I was working with, when they did these things, they got a great result. When they did something else, they did not get a great result. So I am begging, imploring you to do a couple of things. Go back and look at your best stages and draw your own conclusions. Okay, start with your best stages first. What was my mindset going in the stage? Was I looking forward to the stage? Was I afraid of it? Did something scare me? Or did something boost my confidence? Right? These things matter. What you're going to find on your best stages, and this will be true for every match of your entire life, when you have a subconscious stage plan that you are looking forward to executing, you're going to do a whole lot better. And we could do a whole show about positive imprints during stage planning because I don't think people fully understand it. In fact, I'm sure they don't. Right? Your opinion of your stage plan is more important than your stage plan unless you're so new you're doing dumb stuff. And these class winners that we talk about, none of them are so new that they're doing dumb stuff. And if you're splitting hairs on something, that means it does not matter and you need to go to confidence immediately, if not sooner. Sorry about that. Arik Levy just jumped out of his convertible. Okay. Subconscious stage plan, positive imprints. You will find that when you go back and look at your best stages. I promise you. And then we need to learn to have a singular focus on shot calling. Now, if we convert our understanding of shot calling to green, yellow, and red. That will help a bunch. And we spend 3 hours on that in both classes. Everybody who comes to a class that I give comes out of it with a much improved understanding of shot calling and a much enhanced ability to do that. It is a perishable skill for a lot of people, but instead of thinking about scoring zones, I want you to start thinking about colors, at least as an experiment. So let's say a green shot, for example. When I'm properly shot calling, or when I'm talking about it, a green shot is a shot that has a 90% chance of being an alpha. I'm really sure that was an alpha. If it's not, it's going to be close. So we need green shots on open targets. A yellow shot is a shot that is almost certainly a Charlie or a Delta. We know it's not an alpha, but we know it's not a Mike. The yellow zone is very, very small. And the only time you should leave yellows is if you're leaving a position and it's expensive to go back. But the yellow zone is very small and is the most difficult one to call. Now, the red shots on open targets are the ones we need to eliminate. Every time a shooter that I was working with had a Delta, for sure a Mike, you go back and talk to him. Did that shot look a little different? No. Are you sure? Well, I didn't see much. I was leaving. So that's a red shot. And shot calling 101, when the target shakes, that's a Delta. Ha ha ha, funny one. No, I'm being dead serious. Unless there's wood beyond the target, anytime you hit the stick, that's going to be a Delta 95% of the time, unless the target is hung in a non-traditional way. That can be good or that can be bad. If I'm leaving and I see the target shake, and maybe I didn't call the shot in a traditional manner, I have a good chance of having a hit. You know, in our proposed average, a Delta's 0.44. You can't return to a position and make up a Delta into an alpha in 0.44. You can't do it. If you're leaving, you know it's a Delta, it's fine. Going back is going to hurt your hit factor. I'm not telling you to shoot Deltas while you're leaving. It's not what I'm saying. I'm saying these are things that you need to be able to evaluate as the gun goes off. Okay? And so we have green shots. We need green shots on open targets. Okay? Yellow will be extremely rare. Again, yellow is a shot that we know isn't an alpha, but we also know it's not a Mike. That's pretty irresponsible on open targets when it's so easy, right? Again, at the upper level, you could invest 0.12 in the split to make an alpha worthwhile. You can invest 0.14 in a known Charlie to make an alpha worthwhile. Not on the correction, but on the split. B class could have added 0.13 to a split to improve their hit factor with an alpha. And it's never going to take that long. Never going to take that long. In Mikes, 2.2, yeah, you're going to have a Mike or two every now and then, but this should be rare. And again, I'm not advocating for a clean match, and I'm not advocating for 100% alphas. I'm advocating for a cleaner match with more alphas. That's what I'm advocating for. And I'm advocating for it with shot calling. Okay? Let me just go back to the open match and see how many Charlies old Christian shot. So Christian shot 87 Charlies over 18 stages. I can't do the math quick on that. 87. Somebody do the math and yell at your speaker. But he shot 305 alphas over 18 stages. 87 Charlies. Okay. Look at the Charlie count as we go down. So number one shot 87, 88, 86, 102, 94, 95, 99, 96, 100. Christian shot 4 Deltas. 8, 7, 4, 15, 20, 11, 8, 11, 19. Christian shot 0 Mikes. So did Vlieger. Third place, 1, 1, 1, 2, 4, 4, 3, 1, 2. I'm not advocating for a clean match. It's the wrong goal because you'll shoot scared and you'll consciously slow down. I'm advocating for a cleaner match using shot calling as your, number one, your primary focus, and number two, your technical best way to shoot a cleaner match. Do I sound like I'm advocating for shot calling pretty seriously? Is that what you're hearing out there? Now, if you don't know how to call your shots or you don't believe you can do it, you need to be in one of my classes, ASP. Stands for Acceptable Site Picture. As soon as possible, which would be ASAP. Pardon me. So, we need to learn to call our shots so we're not looking for holes in the target, so we can get that information from the gun. Okay? And shot calling on steel will save you 0.8 per steal. Literally 0.8 seconds per steal. If you're doing dirt makeups on steel, or no ding, or it's not falling, if you're using anything other than shot calling to process mics on steel, pardon me, you're wasting potentially 0.8 every single time you have a miss. Okay? Now, if you have a visual patience error on a stage, now, the vast majority of deltas and mics and no shoots are a temporary lapse of visual patience, which is caused by thinking about the wrong thing and or a poor self-image. What that means is I know I need to center the dot and call the shot, but I'm afraid it'll be slow. And I've had some amount of success stepping on the gas a little bit and winning stages with deltas. That is not a repeatable model. My favorite moment of enlightenment is when people realize that shot calling actually makes them faster. For sure, faster than going fast. And doubly for sure if there's steel involved. If there's steel on a stage and you try to go fast, you're screwed. But if you watch the dot lift off of every steel, man, it's going to go so good. It's going to feel slow. It's going to feel like it's taking forever. But when you understand that the alternative is a makeup shot in which the best case scenario is a 0.2 makeup, more likely to be 0.4, 0.6, or 0.8, when you realize that getting it right the first time, particularly on steel, is faster than going fast, you're going to shoot a whole lot better. And if you have a visual patience error on a stage, that's okay. But you need to know that, and you need to correct it immediately. You can afford it on one stage. You can't afford it on an entire day, right? And this is solved by 100% surrender to a singular focus on shot calling or something else visual, combined with a subconscious stage plan, combined with the self-image that is not worried about the results. You will never, in the entire history of your career, regret a quick makeup. Sometimes you've had 3 holes in a target. You go to score, it's 2 alphas and a wide Charlie, and somebody says, I didn't need the makeup. But you did. Unless you are routinely shooting 3 shots in every target, and I mean more than 1 per stage, you did need the makeup. Now, sometimes people see this and hear this information and they think, it's got to be all alphas. It doesn't need to be all alphas. It needs to be a majority alphas on open targets primarily. Charlies and deltas need to come from partials primarily. Okay? It's not that difficult to shoot 2 alphas on an open target, and it doesn't take that much longer than ripping splits. And again, I was extremely impressed with the patience of the splits on the open super squad primarily, right? You've got 0.1, so let's say 0.11 you could add to your split to turn a Charlie into an alpha and have your hit factor improve. But let's just say it didn't take 0.11. Let's say it took 0.03, which is what it usually takes. Turn a 20 into a 23. Turn a 27 into a 30 if the target's a little further away. Right? That is a massive gain in hit factor, but only if you don't consciously slow down. That is the danger of this program. I am not in any way advocating consciously slowing down. I'm advocating waiting a tiny little bit of time. Most of the mics I saw were on the second shot. Raise your hand in your Subaru if your mics are usually on your second shot. That's virtually every phone call I ever take. Well, I go out and shoot the doubles drill. I got a good grip so I can predictively shoot. Yes, you can do all of those things. under certain circumstances. You cannot do those on every shot, on every target. And the industry loves telling you this because you keep coming back and buying more of it. Oh, sell me another book about doubles. Sell me more information about grip. Give me some sort of gadget where I can see my shots in dry fire. It's all crap. It's 100% DOGSHIT. What you need to learn to, yes, grip is important. Yes, predictive shooting is something that you can do within a given environment, but that is not two shots on one sight picture. That is two shots on a continuous sight picture or two shots on two sight pictures. Two shots on a continuous sight picture is better. When I see these guys go out and do the doubles drill and they say, I got an awful lot of Charlies, what's wrong with my grip? Well, maybe something is. What really is happening, something's wrong with your brain. Your brain is the problem, not your grip. You literally think you can rip doubles on one sight picture with impunity, and then when it doesn't work, you go back for more doubles and more thinking about your grip. It's asinine that you would keep going down this road. Learn to shoot alphas quicker. Yes, there's a grip component. Yes, there's a predictive shooting component to it in certain circumstances. And yes, the better the shooter is, and the longer he's been shooting, and the more live fire he's got, and the better all these things are, the more he can predictively shoot. Which means knowing the sight is going to be there instead of waiting to react to it. It is a thing. It's just not a thing on every target. For the love of Pete and Poughkeepsie. So, you got to learn to call your shots. That's all there is to it. And the doubles drill was actually invented as more of a visual exercise so that we can observe what happens if things don't go according to plan. A lot of people don't know that. I know that. It was supposed to be more of a visual exercise as opposed to a rip and splits exercise. It was, hey, what can I get away with as opposed to what am I going to do all the time? A little inside information there, FYI. All right, so that concludes today's program. I want to encourage you to do a few things. I want to encourage you to get your butt into one of my classes. If you want a free one, all you have to do is arrange the range. You do not have to pay the range fees. You have the option of hosting me in your home if you would like to. It is incredibly easy. Literally, the only thing you have to do, send me an email, send me your phone number. I will call you and we'll say, hey, let's pick a date. That's all we have to do. Literally, all we have to do is pick a date. And then I will put the class on the website. I will announce it here. And this is what it would sound like, okay? Hey, we have a brand new class announcement. John Dingleberry from Dingleberry, Alabama decided to do a class at his local range. And it is on this date. And you can sign up for it at upcoming classes. See how easy that was? So easy. And then I either drive or fly. We stay at your house. We hang out. We have a great time. We do 2 or 3 days of class. And everybody becomes a better shooter. It's pretty awesome. All right, folks, hope you enjoyed today's program. And until we meet again online, on the Zoom, on the range, or anywhere else, love you, bye, and get to work.